committee for further deliberations. In an indication that wheels are already set in motion, a parliamentary committee on law and justice headed by BJP's Rajya Sabha MP Sushil Modi has called a meeting on Monday to discuss the need for a common civil code. The panel comprises 31 members of parliament drawn both from government and opposition parties.
डाइवर्सिटी का ध्यान में रखते हुए ही तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आधे दर्जन मामलों में ये कहा कि कॉमन सिविल कोड बनना चाहिए, यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड बनना चाहिए। तो हम तो जो संविधान में लिखा है उसी को लागू करने की दिशा में भारतीय जनता पार्टी आगे बढ़ने का प्रयास कर रही है।
Meanwhile, a draft uniform civil code has already been prepared in Uttarakhand. A committee set up by the Pushkar Singh Dhami government will soon submit the draft.
Drafting of the proposed Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand is now complete. The report of the expert committee, along with the draft code, would soon be printed and submitted to the government of Uttarakhand.
उनका ड्राफ्ट तैयार हो रहा है। ड्राफ्ट लगभग पूरा होने की ओर है। जैसे ही हमको ड्राफ्ट मिलेगा, हम उसका अवलोकन करेंगे।
As the Narendra Modi government pushes for the Uniform Civil Code, opposition parties are calling it diversionary tactics ahead of Lok Sabha elections.
It is against fundamental rights, Article 25 of the Constitution. I have been saying that first you bring in Uniform Civil Code among Hindus. Uniform Civil Code should first remove Agama rules. Only then uniformity will prevail.
It was a constitutional assurance that UCC will be implemented when the minorities agree. There has been no consensus on this issue. So TMC would oppose UCC rollout at this time.
The Congress has cautioned against any hurry in framing the Uniform Civil Code.
ये इतना सेंसिटिव और महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, इसके ऊपर कोई अंतिम निर्णय लेने के लिए पहले सरकार एक अपना पक्ष रखें, फिर जो जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उसमें समय लग सकता है, समय दें। कानून कोई रोज नहीं बनता।
One nation, one law seems to be the new opposition dilemma. After the Aam Aadmi Party, Uddhav Thackeray's faction of the Shiv Sena will also back the central government's push for the Uniform Civil Code. The Uniform Civil Code, if implemented, will replace personal laws based on religion, customs and traditions with one common law for all Indians.
The question is whether the Bharatiya Janata Party will be able to bring together all the like-minded parties, even from the opposition, as far as supporting this particular bill is concerned, whether this will become a reality in the upcoming monsoon session when it will be tabled in the parliament. The camera person Abhishek Bhai, don't get
All right, as we're going to cut across to our political guest this evening, let me take you now why it could be a huge conundrum when it comes down to opposition unity. Because if the BJP makes the UCC the rallying point of elections 2024, then how does a united opposition find common ground? And let's break it down in terms of where each of these opposition parties stand. Well, the Uddhav Sena faction has strongly supported the UCC. That's been their ideological stand right from the beginning when there was a united Shiv Sena as well. However, the Uddhav faction is in an alliance with the likes of the Congress and the NCP. The Congress firmly standing against the implementation of the UCC. The NCP still iffy, conditional support. The Aam Aadmi Party on that account has said very clearly that in principle, we are going to go and support the UCC as it's been a part of the constitution. Having said that, there's a bit of a lacuna where the Aam Aadmi Party comes into question because the Delhi unit might be supporting it, but can the Punjab unit of the Aam Aadmi Party also in principle support the UCC? Because if you look at it, where the NDA is concerned, you have the Akalis which are not supporting the UCC. All the other parties that you see against, the TMC is against the UCC. You have the DMK against the UCC, the Samajwadi Party against the UCC. Fissures already created where what was considered to be a united opposition. And if the BJP makes the UCC a rallying pole plank in the days to come, how does a united opposition come together and fight that in the days to come? Let's cut across to our guest this evening. Joining me is Priyanka Chaturvedi, MP Rajya Sabha, Deputy Leader, Shiv Sena, Dr. Ashutosh Verma, Spokesperson Samajwadi Party, Reena Gupta, Spokesperson Aam Aadmi Party, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan, Spokesperson Bharatiya Janata Party. I want to cut across first to Priyanka Chaturvedi. Ms. Chaturvedi, you know, what one hears constantly is that this is an ideological stand that your party has taken, or possibly the Aam Aadmi Party has taken, but where does this ideological stand lie when you go into elections in 2024 and BJP makes this their biggest poll plank? Somewhere down the line, the opposition would have to come together and speak in one voice if you are to come together.
No, firstly, I find it very amusing that we don't have a draft in place. There's no discussion in the public domain. We don't know how the structure of UCC would look like, and you've already divided it on the basis of who's supporting, who's offering conditional support, and who's against it, and how will the opposition unity come about. So I find that a bit amusing.
So, Ms. Chaturvedi, are you waiting for the draft, or in principle does your party support the UCC?
Will you, if you allow me to complete,
Please go ahead, ma'am.
I'll tell you my answer. But you'll have to allow me to complete. I was just reacting to the news story that you all started with. Now, secondly, coming to where we stand. In principle, we absolutely support the Uniform Civil Code simply because equality and justice is the right of every citizen, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their caste, irrespective of their religion. Even the Supreme Court and various other courts, high courts, have gone on to say that they find that interpretation of personal laws becomes very difficult. Sometimes you misinterpret it, you misread it, there is misinformation. We need clarity on that. The reason I said draft, and I insist on the draft, is simply because whether it's the Parsi community, whether it is a Sikh community, whether it is the various tribes that we have in India, whether it is the Hindus, whether it is the Muslims, every single person has been following their set of faith, Christianity. Everyone has their own set of laws. And how you're going to build a consensus? So you cannot be building a consensus from a political rally where the Prime Minister comes and he starts speaking big on law and makes it about us versus them. Whereas it is about various stakeholders. The diversity in this country is so high that you'll need to have stakeholder consultations. It's not a political rally speech where you say, oh, who's with us, who's against us, who's us, who's them. It doesn't work like that. That is all I would want to say. In principle, yes, we do agree that we need a common civil code. But how will it be structured is something that we are all waiting to see.
Well, right. Your ally, the Congress, goes ahead and says that this is vote bank politics. But, you know, we're going to come back to that question. Reena Gupta, I want to pull you in. Principal stand with the UCC. That is what the Aam Aadmi Party has said. I want to ask you, Reena Gupta, is there a duality in that principal stand where the UCC is concerned? Is your Punjab unit going to be equally on board as your Delhi unit when it comes down to once the bill is tabled in Rajya Sabha as well?
So, Preeti, our party stand is very clear that in principle we support the UCC.
Which includes the Punjab unit, Reena Gupta.
Allow me to complete, Preeti.
Please, ma'am.
Because it's part of the Constitution, it's one of the directive principles of the state policy, Article 44. Like we respect all the other directive principles, whether they are about health and education, in the same way we are saying that Uniform Civil Code is part of the Constitution, so we support it. However, we don't agree with the Bharatiya Janata Party's process of coming about the UCC. This is not just a legal reform. UCC will be a big social reform for the country. So one will have to sit with all the religious leaders of various sects. What happens to the Sikhs? What happens to the Jains? What happens to the Parsis? What happens to the Hindu Undivided Family Act? A lot of the Hindus use HUF to get income tax rebate. What happens to them? What happens to the customary tribal laws? What happens to the areas which are under Article 371? So instead of talking about all of that, what Bharatiya Janata Party has done is using this as another electoral tactics. In a political rally, the Prime Minister throws it out there, you know, almost like a jumla, कि UCC होना चाहिए पूरे देश में.
Okay, as I bring in, right. But Veena Gupta, I'm going to ask you this question again as I bring in Guru Prakash Paswan. The Akalis have opposed it. The Panthis have opposed a draft of a UCC where Punjab is concerned. Are you still telling me, madam, that your Punjab unit is on board?
Preeti, the Punjab unit is on board. We are all on board for a discussion in principle. But what will be the nuances? That needs to be discussed. For example, allow me to complete my last point. For example, in the northeast, in Nagaland, where Bharatiya Janata Party has a coalition government, and the law in Nagaland says very clearly that the customary tribal laws are supreme, and even the parliament cannot enact a law which goes against the customary tribal laws.
Veena Gupta, no. In that sense, yes, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan, there's a lot of credence to what the likes of Ms. Chaturvedi is saying, or even what Reena Gupta added. Where is the draft? Other than the rhetoric, how do you actually see what is being, looking at being implemented? Especially if you're going to make this about a religion, it's really not so much about religion, then it is about ethnicity as well. And an example given by Reena Gupta, what about all the matrilineal tribes in the northeast? What happens there? They're going to dig in their heels.
Preeti ji, a very warm good evening to you and all my fellow panelists. And I was patiently listening to the senior leaders from Aam Aadmi Party and the Shiv Sena as well. I have to point out one simple thing, that there is a sustained misinformation campaign when it comes to draft. And I would like to read a news which the Law Commission, it's a Law Commission of India press note. It categorically says that the draft is not ready yet. There is a process of consultation. In a democracy, in a constitutional democracy, any law that is made, it has to be discussed. The draft has to be made by the public. And the Law Commission of India's press note categorically says, if you allow me to read, those who are interested and willing may present their views within a period of 30 days from the date of notice through click here button, or there is an email address of Law Commission of India given as well. So the entire misinformation campaign, where is the draft? Absolutely, there is no draft. There is a process in consultation. There is a consultation happening. People who are real stakeholders, they can submit their observations. They can submit their reservations. I agree with this part of Uniform Civil Code. Please take this down. This is how laws are being made in democracy. And Preeti, also I would like to mention here that Uniform Civil Code was a constitutional promise. It was a constitutional prerogative. Article 44 of the Constitution of India categorically states that the state shall endeavour to provide to secure a uniform civil code for citizens throughout the country.
But okay, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan, nobody is...
It is about equal status for everyone.
No, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan, I don't think anybody, at least on this panel, is denying that it's been a part or a fundamental part of our constitution. Nobody is really denying that. But when you're talking about a draft, are you actually saying, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan, if and when this bill is tabled, before that, multiple parties, some of them right now being represented on this debate, will be taken into consultation before it's tabled?
Preeti, there is absolutely no question of them not being consulted. Like I said, it's out in the open. It's out in the public domain. Any party is free and independent to reach out to the Law Commission. They only need to write an email. What is this brouhaha? What is this entire misinformation campaign? This is beyond my comprehension. There is an email address. You can approach the email address. You can submit your observation. You can submit your... You agree with it. You agree with it or not. You disagree with it or not. What is your version? What is your idea about the Uniform Civil Code? You are free to submit by email. Please stop this misinformation campaign that where is the draft? Where is the draft?
I want to bring in the Samajwadi Party spokesperson as well, but Priyanka Chaturvedi, stop running a misinformation campaign against the government and the UCC. It's a sensitive matter. Let the Law Commission take its course. And then we cut across to the Samajwadi Party and back to Ms. Reena Gupta. Ms. Chaturvedi.
Actually, I'm very glad that the BJP spokesperson has clarified that there is no draft in place. So whatever is happening in all these political rallies is just political opportunism coming right from the Prime Minister to the Defence Minister and to the various other ministers who've been talking non-stop ever since the UCC debate was struck. Now he also says Law Commission has opened it up for opinions. Let me also remind him the feedback mechanism is still not over. Here they have just started that what is your idea of unified civil code, uniform civil code. Let me remind him that the same law commission earlier consultative papers had spoken against the idea of a uniform civil code. The same consultation process had begun, consultative papers were prepared, and in 2016 when it began, it was the Rashtriya Adivasi Ekta Parishad which went to the Supreme Court and said that they are against the idea of UCC because there are over 110 tribes which have their own rituals which do not come under the Hindu Act, and whether it is polygamy, whether it is polyandry, whether it is about their marriage rituals, whether it is about their death rituals, cannot be dictated under the Uniform Civil Code. So, I mean, you know, the entire argument that is coming from them is so superficial, and I'm glad that the BJP spokesperson has clarified that there is no draft, but we are doing full politics on it.
Okay, Dr. Paswan, I'm coming to you. Let me just bring in Dr. Ashutosh Verma and then I'm going to come right back to you. Dr. Ashutosh Verma, you are a part of the Samajwadi Party. Now the opposition has...
I think if I can respond to it.
Preeti, so let him... Okay,
Priyanka had some observation. Can I please respond to it?
Please respond, then I'll cut across to the Samajwadi Party.
10 seconds only. So to say that... thank you so much. Just to say that the Law Commission has previously declined it, it's like similarly it was declining the 370 abrogation as well. Governments previously has declined the Ram Temple as well. But it is our commitment, it is our promise, and we are going to ensure that there is no discrimination made when it comes to the implementation of personal laws.
Dr. Ashutosh Verma, you are a part of what is now a very fragile opposition unity, and the UCC has further drawn fault lines, or at least exposed the fault lines that already existed in this unity. You have the Aam Aadmi Party, which is seeking support on the ordinance, but is going to support the UCC in principle. You oppose the UCC. You have the Uddhav faction of the Shiv Sena, which is supporting the UCC, but wants to look at the draft.
So, Preeti, I think I don't find anything in this UCC because I think it's just a ploy framed by the Bharatiya Janata Party 6 to 8 months before the general election to polarize it, because they have not done any homework till now. They don't have any answer regarding various issues which has to be dealt. And only the Prime Minister, the former Home Minister and presently Defence Minister only say about Muslim personal law, not about the Uniform Civil Code. Uniform Civil Code is not to amendment any Muslim. You have to make it very clear. They have no answer about what we will do about the Hindu and divided family. What about the cultural and religious diversities in various factions of the country, especially in South, where there's a huge difference between the family cultural activities, like in the north of. What about the tribal which has been kept in Schedule 6? What about this Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act and some
Dr. Verma, all those questions are on board, and you are right by posing those questions. But those questions that you're posing to the government, if you turn around and let's pose this question to you, how is the opposition going to deal with it? Because let's say it's even rhetoric. Let's say it's rhetoric. But if the BJP goes with the UCC as its major poll plank in 2024, how does a united opposition actually go ahead and fight this election collectively? All of you have very, very different views on it.
No, so everybody in the panel, including the Shiv Sena, UBT and Aam Aadmi Party, have said that with the simple principles. Principles, what is principles? Give the draft, give the homework, then tell us what to do. Everybody in this country from 1948 till 2023 is okay with Uniform Civil Code with definitive principles. But Bharatiya Janata Party is definitely not going to do such things because they only want to polarize the country on this issue. You can't. Look, the Indian Penal Code, the codification has been done in 1872. It is about 150 years from then. They have not even codified a single family code. And they are going to change the code in the next 1 month, and they want a discussion in 1 month.
Reena Gupta,
practically not possible.
The dichotomy lies here.
They are only polarization.
The dichotomy lies here. The likes of Dr. Ashutosh Verma. Yes, sir, make your point. Make your point.
Just a minute. Because there are such a huge setback to union government regarding the corruption deals, regarding the inflation, regarding the unemployment, they just want to change our mind and just have a discussion.
Okay, diversionary tactics is what you're saying. I'll come
and that's only a polarizing the way.
I just want to bring in Reena Gupta and we go across to the BJP spokesperson. But Reena Gupta, the dichotomy lies right here, doesn't it? Because the likes of Dr. Ashutosh Verma staunchly his party opposing the UCC. You want their support on the ordinance, like the Congress, which is opposing the UCC, but you're supporting the UCC, madam.
See, Preeti, it's very ironical when the Bharatiya Janata Party starts to speak about the constitution and gender justice. It's almost laughable when BJP starts to speak about it. Having said that, as far as the UCC is concerned, I think Bharatiya Janata Party needs to think very carefully, because they have a history of hastily implementing laws, whether it's the farm laws or it's demonetization, GST. When the country was not ready, they rode roughshod over all of us. They went ahead, enacted these laws in parliament, and look what happened with the farm laws. So what I want to tell them is that this UCC is a very big issue. It's like a big social reform for the country. So please have conversations, dialogues with all leaders. Bring everybody on board.
Only you're being accused very clearly of using something as sensitive as one nation, one law, which is in the constitution, to polarize an election.
We must understand a couple of things. So I was listening to the leader from the Aam Aadmi Party, and she was making tall claims about the constitution. So Aam Aadmi Party has a constitution, and that constitution has made Arvind Kejriwal ji permanent president of that political party, a permanent convener of Aam Aadmi Party. So any leader from Aam Aadmi Party speaking on constitutional ethos, constitutional values is laughable. That is point number one. Point number two, the leader from the Samajwadi Party was speaking about diversionary tactic for a political party that has faced loss in 2017, in 2022, in 2014, in 2019. And please have faith on the wisdom of the people of India. The people of the India, they have wisdom, they are wise than you and I combined. You cannot divert them. They vote on the basis of real issues, whatever touches them. Culturally, civilizationally, constitutionally, uniform civil code has been a prerogative. Uniform civil
do you reckon this is a political minefield for a united opposition to maneuver in days to come?
No, I don't. I will not look at this as the focus point of our opposition unity. Opposition unity would be on the basis of what their vision of India would be. We are all for diversity of India. We are all for constitutional morality. We are all for democratic principles. What happened in Tamil Nadu yesterday? Is for all to see. Where the Home Minister had to step in, he would say that the governor would face embarrassment if he continues with what he's doing. So that's the constitutional morality. Democratic principles. We are seeing how elected governments are pulled down by the Bharatiya Janata Party. We are talking about diversity. We are seeing how by using the Uniform Civil Code, which is a very principled idea to implement, which was Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar's dream, that it should happen in its due course. But they're using it without a draft, without any idea, without any consultation.
I apologize. I know Reena Gupta wants to come in, the Samajwadi Party leader, Dr. Paswan. Apologies there, but need to wrap up the bulletin. But, well, will it be tabled in the coming monsoon session? We don't quite know. There is no draft right now. But having said that, this is going to be, whether the united opposition admits or not, a political minefield for the opposition to maneuver. What if the BJP makes it their primary poll plank in days to come? A quick break. Up next is Rahul Kanwal.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar talks tough on Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. Another blunt remark on deteriorating ties with China, holding Beijing responsible for not adhering to a number of agreements between India and China.
There has to be an adherence to agreements which were reached between us. And it is that departure from what was agreed between us, difficult phase that we are passing through with China.
And exposing Canada on inaction against Khalistan supporters, blaming vote bank politics in the country. Pakistan's state-sponsored terror was clearly in the line of Dr. Jaishankar's fire, where he made it clear that ties will remain strained till Pakistan stopped cross-border terror. The External Affairs Minister said he was perplexed why the policy of zero tolerance for terror was not strictly followed earlier.
I don't think to me, it's a fairly common sense proposition. In fact, if anything, I'm still a little perplexed by why we had not arrived at this position earlier. But we have arrived at it now.
This statement came just after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's firm stance against terrorism at the US Congress. Dr. Jaishankar also spoke of India's strong steps along the line of actual control to checkmate China.
Yes, again, our response to China on the northern borders has been one of our major, I would say, achievements in a way, because if you look at the scale of the response and the very daunting conditions in which it was undertaken.
He made it clear improvement of ties with China depended directly on peace and tranquility prevailing along the line of actual control.
We recognize it's a neighbor, it's a big neighbor, it's today a very significant economy and significant power. But at the end of the day, any relationship has to be based on a high degree of mutuality. There has to be a respect for each other's interests, sensitivity for each other's interests.
Talking tough on overseas support to Khalistan extremists, Dr. Jaishankar expressed his disappointment at vote bank politics in Canada.
If there are activities which are permitted from Canada, which impinge on our sovereignty, territorial integrity, on our security, then, we will have to respond. So it is something which is I would say, a continuing conversation with Canada, not always a satisfactory conversation.
Confident and strong on facts, India is clearly exposing global doublespeak on terror, keeping India first. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Indian government is pushing back against the Congress's questions. In a point-by-point rebuttal being circulated internally as a background briefing, the government has debunked the 8 claims and questions fired by the Congress party over a deal that in reality is still to be even negotiated. After setting the agenda on the drone deal politics, India Today now details the government's internal reply to the Congress. First off, the Congress's question over why there has been no meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security to clear the drone deal. Government sources clarify that the procurement procedure involves at least 7 more stages before clearance by the Cabinet, and as of now the decks have only been cleared for negotiations. Second, the Congress's claim that the Indian government is paying over 4 times more per drone than similar drones sold by the US to other countries. While the deal is still to be negotiated, government sources clarify that even keeping for erroneous comparisons between disparate deals that involve different drone types, packages or configurations, India's proposal involves getting the drones at 812 crore rupees per airframe as compared to over 1200 crores a piece in similar deals to other nations. The third claim is that the government is rushing into a deal in a hurry and losing out on AI tech on a